Do you want to learn how to be less codependent? Hey, I'm Antia, creator and founder of the Magnetize The Man Method, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, it's super important to break through codependence so you can actually respect yourself and attract the man into your life who treasures you, who supports you, and respects you as well. So let me tell you my keys on how to be less codependent. Number one, and this is almost like really the most important, is really boundaries, right? So when we're in codependent patterns, and I will go first because I had a totally codependent relationship with my mother, right? So that means I didn't know where I end and where she began, right? And then of course I started to also attract kind of men into my life who were also mirroring that same kind of dynamic back into my life, right? Who also, I'm like, well, I can give them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know, maybe it's not that bad, and maybe I do agree, and right? And so I was like talking myself into things I should have not talked myself into, and I was talking myself out of things that were actually my truth. Okay, so boundaries are super important, and there are internal boundaries, and then there are also external boundaries. So oftentimes I see my clients practicing external boundaries, but the boat that they're missing is the internal boundaries. Because guess what? If you don't set internal boundaries too, it's incongruent, right? It's not reinforced. You're not advocating for your boundaries. And it's somewhat like, I don't know. You know, it feels like a little bit wavery, right? Like, so you're like, well, you know, I don't know if she's that, if she is really all about that, you know? Okay. So tip number 2 on how to be less codependent is guilt management. So look, you have to understand what are the certain aspects and attributes that play into codependence. One for sure is guilt, right? Whether there's one person that's particularly guilt tripping, right? Or the other person that's literally just so receptive to guilt and they don't want to feel the shame. Let me tell you one thing. Here's a saying, guilt is the ego's way into tricking you that you think you have morals. In other words, you're telling yourself, wait, so if I don't feel guilty, then I'm not human. I should feel guilty. I should feel off. I should apologize, right? I should feel shame. If I don't, I really, I don't know, you know, like maybe I'm not connected to myself. No, that's absolutely not true. Right? It means like, okay, I'm connected to my own internal agenda. And what I mean by that is like, I'm connected to my own beliefs. I'm connected to my own internal dialogue, to my own emotions inside of myself, whether they make sense or not, but I'm connected to them. I'm congruent with them. And I am cohesive, right? They're really cohesive. That means they're interconnected with each other inside of me, right? Versus like saying, oh no, you are right, and I'm going to lose myself, I'm going to leave myself, I'm going to abandon myself. And then guess what? In return, you are running this pattern and this fear inside of your relationship that guess what? The other person is going to abandon you, right? That's what happens, you know, and then you're afraid that the other person is going to reject you. And that's where the codependent pattern starts, because you think, oh my gosh, no, I need to jump through another hoop, you know, I need to give him another chance, and I need to be more polite, and I can't speak up like that, you know, I need to learn, work on communication, which can be true, but oftentimes it's also you're really stepping into your power. And also, when it comes to guilt management, understanding that right and wrong is relative. Right or wrong according to who, to whose agenda, to whose rules, to whose structure, right? So ask yourself that every single time. They're like, that's wrong. According to who? If you talk to a rebel, this is right. This is the best thing to do. And by the way, we always do the best thing that we think is best for us, right? So there is really only one right or wrong, which is really more subjective. And then you find how you can negotiate with the other person in an intelligent, empowering way that you really create win-win situations. Tip number 3 on how to be less codependent is develop your own life. Look, so many times, so there's 2 stages, right? Either you don't even have your own life. So the man comes along, it's like, oh my God, he is my entire world. I hear this all the time, right? You know, and you're like doing all this stuff for him, right? And you're just like, you don't really have your own life. You don't really have your own girlfriends. You don't have your own hobbies. You know, you don't, you just want to disappear inside of him, right? Maybe you don't even have your own purpose. See, that's even more intense. That's something we really got to talk about, girlfriend. You know, maybe you don't even know who you are, why you're here on this planet, and you're just really waiting for someone who tells you what to do and who you are. Now, the other way how this can go is like, you know who you are, but what happens is you start dating this amazing man, and bit by bit, you're like, oh, you know, he says, hey, are you available on Thursday? And you say, you know, actually I have my yoga class, but yeah, I can do the one on Friday. I can do the one on Saturday. You know, or like, oh, I normally get my nails done. I meet my girlfriends on Tuesday nights or whatever, right? And so bit by bit, you're starting to leave yourself more and more. And like really like, and this is huge because think about it. The man got attracted to you for you, who you were in that moment, that congruent vibrational field that's in love with herself and with her life, right? But when you start now leaving yourself, he's also like kind of falling out of love with you as well. And then also because you're leaving yourself, you're giving your power to the other person. And this is really huge. You're now trying to somehow get the power back in some really weird ways, right? And so you can't let it go. And so this codependent cycle continues. The next tip is face your fear and let go. Now, how it oftentimes works is specifically if you're really more of an anxious attachment style. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my video on attachment styles in relationship. So if you're like particularly anxious, right, then what happens is you're not letting go. You're actually holding on, you're clinging, you're holding on for life. This boat is sinking and you're holding on, right? Versus actually jumping ship way ahead of time so you can save yourself, you continue to rescue yourself, you continue to rely on yourself to be your own rock, to be your own foundation, right? And so what that means is like whatever you're afraid of, you have to feel that. If you're afraid to be single for the rest of your life, you have to face that. Look, this is a really interesting story. A few months before I met my husband, Brody, and by the way, he told me the first night that we met that I'm the girl of his story. And of course, the rest was then history, right? Or her story. I just had to really this coming to Jesus moment, right? And it was really about, what if I'm single for the rest of my life? Look, I was single my entire life. My longest quote unquote relationship was 2.5 months, which is nothing, right? So for me, it was so believable, this could just continue. It was for the last 10 years, why not the next 10 years? And so I just had to really lean into that fear that I could be single for the rest of my life. Now, the trick about that is you have to still create space within that. So you're not holding on to it. You're not like, okay, this is what I'm getting ready for. Nobody's going to love me. Nobody's going to be there for me. I can't rely on anyone. No. I'm saying you have to be open to that possibility because then you create space and a new opportunity can come in for you and you actually move into what I call the interdependent dynamic in relationships versus the codependent because you no longer need this man, you now choose him. Now, next tip is commit to the process and detach from the outcome. Now, this is pretty sort of self-explanatory, but I will give you an example. So this must have been about 12 years ago when I was really interested in this guy, right? And so he was sending me all those mixed signals. You know, like he was like smiling at me and he was like flirting with me, but then he was not asking me out. And I'm like, okay. So I was in this workshop at the time. And so we were always inventing like a new possibility, right? And so I said, you know what? I'm creating this possibility to have an open and trusting relationship to men. Note, commit to the process. My process is to have an open and committed relationship, trusting relationship to men, right? And so what I decided to do, it's like, I'm gonna go to coffee with him and I'm gonna tell him how I feel, that I'm attracted to him, right? Again, but detaching from the outcome, because for me, it was all about having this open and connected and trusting relationship with men. That was my biggest thing. That means being honest with him. That's my only thing. I don't know what happens otherwise, right? So anyway, so fast forward, we're going on a date, coffee, whatever you want to say. And I tell him, and he's like in tears. And he said he has never had a woman be so vulnerable with him and that he would have totally been open to date me, except he had met his wife 4 weeks earlier, who was also in our course. So of course they're still married, have 2 beautiful kids, and you know what? The interesting part is that I learned something really important. It was really about committing to the process, because when I drove home, I literally cannot tell you I was so happy if I just got quote unquote rejected, or if I was told that I'm the one for him, right? And that really was because I was committing to the process and detaching from the outcome. And then the biggest piece is how to really step out of this codependent pattern and be less codependent is forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself. Because think about it, where does guilt come from? Guilt comes from like lack of forgiveness, right? Guilt comes from, oh no, I can't be in this kind of energy with myself. I can't forgive myself for giving my power away, for betraying myself, for leaving myself. Oh my God, no way, I cannot do that. And so it's really forgiving yourself for judging yourself. And so whatever that is that you're judging yourself for, are you judging yourself to be selfish? Are you judging yourself to be arrogant? Are you judging yourself to be a bitch? Oh, God forbid, right? Are you judging yourself for, what are some other ones? Like, I don't know, self-centered, or maybe even stupid, whatever it is, right? But like you're judging yourself for not respecting yourself. Forgiving yourself. It's the biggest thing. We always work so much on forgiving other people, but it's really forgiving yourself. All right, so those are my points, how to be less codependent. So in summary, set boundaries, internal and external, work on your guilt management, develop your own life, face your fear and let go, commit to the process, and also detach from the outcome and forgive yourself. All right, so if you're like, wow, Antia, this is really a lot to take on, and I'm kind of a little bit struggling with that, and I don't really know where to start, or how to forgive myself, or how to set the boundaries internally, or how to commit to the process, or whatever the case may be, I invite you to come on a Magnetize Your Man heart-to-heart chat, where we get crystal clear what it is for you, where it actually starts, where it originates, what's the source of it, because we really want to know what's that pivotal point. We don't want to catch you when you go already downhill. That's too late. We want to catch you right where is the pivotal point. We just go over, see what's going on there, and we want to interrupt that so that you're going to go upward versus downward. So for that, hop on over to magnetizeyourman.com, or you can also click that link below to reserve your slot as long as they last. Well, I am so excited to see you living an interdependent life. Much love to you. I'm Antia Boyd. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.